Welcome to Borders and Beyond. My name is Martin, and with me today I have my co-host Vinny.
Hey Martin, how you going?
I'm all right, mate. How are you?
I'm well for a Friday evening.
Oh, yeah.
So, on that point, what are we talking? What are we doing here on a Friday evening?
A good question, right? Good question. So picture this, mate. As
Okay.
you said, it was Friday. Normally, what people do on a Friday in the evening is they go shopping for the weekend, right? So you're at
Stock up.
Woolies, you stock up. You go into the Woolies or Coles. It doesn't really matter which one it is. Northcote, Richmond, Cranbourne. Doesn't matter. Wherever. Doesn't really matter. You're done the big shop. Your trolley is full, right? And you're swinging past the bread aisle. Something that you normally do at the end of the shopping. You go past the bread aisle. And as you reach the sandwich loaf, and you then go in there, you look at the sandwich loaf and you just pick it. It's a white one. You pick it up and you grab it. And then all of a sudden you look at it and says, hang on a minute, there's something not right about this, right? And you're like, hang on, the price of bread has moved up. And something in the back of the brain seems, oh, Jesus, what's going on here?
Funny you should say that. I had that exact moment last night. I stood there like an idiot staring at the shelf. Thought maybe I was in the wrong aisle. Because this is something that like you said, it is Groundhog Day. Bread is a staple once a week. Yeah, it's something we do every couple of days.
Indeed, every household has it, right? Every household has it. And here's the thing that the feeling you had, right? It's a bit of unease. You're looking at it and saying, oh, hang on a minute. Last week I paid this much and today it's looking a bit different. It's not in your head. It's not like supermarkets are gouging anything. It's not even inflation, right? It's connected to a war that is being fought 10,000 kilometers away, right? In a stretch of water most Australians would not find on a map.
The five golden words, the Strait of Hormuz.
Indeed, it is that. It is that. And on Borders and Beyond today, we're going to go deep. We're going to talk about the Strait of Hormuz, how the war there, and we're going to go digging into it. All right. From the bread aisle, Woolies or in Coles, wherever you are, or Aldi, all the way back to the wheat farm in the Wimmera, from Melbourne's fuel pumps to a tanker that has gone dark in the Persian Gulf. We're going to follow every single step.
And by the end of this episode, you will never look at a loaf of bread the same way again.
Welcome to Borders and Beyond.
And today we're asking one question. How does a war in the Middle East end up on your kitchen bench? Let's get into it.
Indeed, let's do that. All right, so let's set the scene, right? A lot of people have been seeing the headlines, war in the Middle East, oil prices going up, petrol prices going up, diesel prices going up, but they're not really connecting the dots, right? And it's pretty extraordinary when you lay them out.
All right, Martin. So give us the timeline. Where did this all start?
Good question, mate. Actually, this is a good question. So it started last year, middle of June, around June 13, the 12-day war where Israel had that bombing session on Iran. And so it started there, and that one was just
almost like that's gone past.
I know.
I didn't even realize it until you mentioned it. Yeah.
So the 12-day war happened, and then things simmered down, and everybody just went along with it, and then it flared up again, right? But this time there were three parties to it. There was Iran, the US, and Israel, with Israel and US being on one side and Iran on the other side, right? And end of February, the airstrikes happened, late February 2026, and then something really happened. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz, effectively closed it down.
Effectively holding the global energy industry to ransom. Now,
Indeed.
Martin, explain to me, what is the Strait of Hormuz and why does it matter so much?
Yeah, this is interesting, right? The Strait of Hormuz. Okay, let's picture this. The best way to describe it is it's like a funnel. Just look at it this way. On one side of the funnel is the Persian Gulf. On the other side of the funnel is the ocean. And the neck is like the Strait of Hormuz. And if someone constricts the neck, nothing passes through. That's basically it. It's a 34-kilometer gap, which is controlled by Iran, right? So, yeah, that's basically the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf, by the way.
So when you say 34 kilometers, that's almost like Sydney to the Blue Mountains.
Yeah, if you're good thinking, mate, to be honest. But the problem with that is most of our listeners are not in Australia. So some people are going through the Blue Mountains, and yes, that makes sense. If not, nah, it doesn't make sense. But you're absolutely correct. And to be honest with you, that's exactly how you would look at it. All right. 20% of the world's oil go through that. 20% of the world's LNG go through that every single day. Basically, shutting it down is problematic.
20%, again, simple fractions. That's 1/5 of the global supply.
Indeed. So basically, go on.
Yeah. Sorry, Martin. I was going to say, so now, as it stands, it's closed now, like completely deadlocked.
Yeah, completely done. Basically, no traffic, down to zero, right? The IRGC, which is the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, they've basically said, no more. They've shut it all down. So you have tankers on one side of the funnel and tankers on the other side of the funnel. Nobody can go in or go out. They started laying mines, they're boarding, and so basically nothing is happening, right? So the International Energy Agency has called it one of the largest disruptions in history. And for them to step in and start saying things like that, it basically tells you it is quite a serious moment.
And this is beyond my time, but I've read about it. The 1970s oil shock was probably one of the biggest ones recorded in history. Are you saying we're heading towards a bigger oil catastrophe than that?
It's heading in that direction, mate, to be honest. I mean, the
It's
1970s, the oil shock, I know you probably weren't born, but I knew exactly what you're talking about.
I read
I
about
had a
it.
very
Yeah.
good, it was quite full on, right?
Yeah.
And basically, there's a direct comparison. People are doing some direct comparison. But the difference here is that right now, we are an interconnected world as opposed to the
Correct.
70s. It wasn't. So today's global supply chains are completely intertwined. And so the ripple there, the close down has ripples here in Melbourne.
Okay. So where does oil sit right now, price-wise?
Price wise, what we're looking at is at the moment, well, there are two indexes that the world watches, right? So there's the West
Brent
Texas
crude.
Intermediate and the
Yep.
Brent crude. Okay.
Yep.
As of today, we're looking at Brent at about $102 and the West Texas Intermediate at about $95. All right. That's the two. There's another one that they use called the Urals. That's basically coming out of Russia, and that's a touch more than the 105. That's, I think, is bordering 110. So basically that's where we're looking at in terms of oil.
And if we were to sort of compare this to where we were last year, just to give a snapshot, where were we sitting at last year?
We were, if I'm not mistaken, we're looking at about $60 to $65 per barrel, right?
So
And so there is that spike that has gone up and has reached where I told you now that
105, nearly
and the euros is about 108. And if this war continues, we're going to start heading north of that.
north.
Of that. No,
Martin,
yeah.
Martin, again, just basic math. That's nearly 60% increase in a 12-month period. And no wonder an idiot like me sitting here wondering why the grocery bill feels a lot more heavier on the pocket without anything else changing. The product still remains the same. The weight still remains the same. There's more dollars being shelled out just to buy the same loaf of bread.
Indeed. And that's like, you are spot on with that, right? Most people just look at it from a petrol price point of view.
Correct.
But the simple bread is made up of a whole host of different things, right? So yeah, it's a bit of a interesting situation we find ourselves in, right? Yeah. Most people just see the price of petrol go up, right? And they think it's just oil. They don't think of anything else that is actually related to it. But
Especially not bread.
that especially not
bread.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, indeed. Yeah. That's basically where we are at the moment.
So, and you're spot on, Martin. I guess bread is the perfect example to pull that apart. So, which is exactly what we're hoping to do today, right? But first, why should we Australians care specifically? Like, we don't get all our oil directly from the Gulf, do we?
Good question. It's not like, look, I know people get confused, but there's no direct pipeline. It's not like we have a pipeline from Saudi Arabia going all the way to Geelong. No,
Correct.
that's not. But look at it this way, mate. Let me put it this way to you. 20% of the world's oil is coming through there. It gets shut off. It's like you being in a swimming pool. They take out 20%. All of a sudden, the water level goes down. It doesn't matter which side of the swimming pool you're sitting at. It's still gone down. So there is a crunch, right? And that's basically what you're looking at. There is that crunch. And the product itself, you have lost 20% of it. So there's less of that product and there'll be more demand for it. The demand is still there.
So basically, the pool is empty and we're all swimming in it.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah, right. And Australia's exposure is actually deeper than anyone else. So our diesel supply, we get it from Singapore. And Singapore, which has got huge refineries there, by the way, we get it from Singapore, and Singapore gets its crude from the Middle East. All right, they don't they don't get it from anywhere else. They get it from the Middle East.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this is shot. We don't have diesel. And guess what? No diesel. We can't move our tractors. We can't move our transport. That's nothing, right? So that gives you an idea of how this supply chain actually affects Australia, right? And its dependency on it.
So just in terms, if you had to put a figure on it, what sort of percentage are we looking at on Australia's dependency on the Strait of Hormuz linked supply chains, really?
50%, 50, 60%. That's what we're looking at.
50%. That's
right.
basically half our diesel. Yeah,
Correct.
right. Okay. So that ain't no footnote, mate. That's the bloody headline.
It is absolutely the bad line, right? It is absolutely there. And I really want to get into this today. And it's not just about the fuel, right? It's about what's inside the loaf of bread. And that brings us,
Great perspective.
yeah, and that brings us to how we're going to dissect this.
So here we are on a Friday evening,
Yeah.
breaking bread, basically.
Breaking bread, indeed. We are breaking bread. So, Vinny, we're going to look at the journey of a loaf from paddock to plate.
Okay, so I want to do this properly, Martin. Martin. I
Sure.
want you to actually start to follow this flow from end to end, really. From the very beginning. Like, where does bread actually start?
Well, it starts in a paddock, mate. In a wheat paddock, most likely in Western Australia, South Australia, Victoria, New South Wales. One of these four large states, that's where it starts. We grow a lot of this stuff, and the journey starts with the first seed when it goes into the ground, right? And this is the time it actually goes into the ground. Now, this is the story I generally think most people have no idea about, okay? The main fertilizer for wheat is urea. Okay? It is this nitrogen-based compound basically supercharges the plant's growth. And without it, what you're getting is less yield per plant, or however you want to put it, and lower quality, right? And Australia imports more than 95%.
And you say 95%.
Yep.
That almost means we make almost none of our own.
We don't.
95%.
No, we don't. It's a massive chunk we import, and we bring them from the Gulf states. So now that the Strait of Hormuz is closed, guess what's happened to the price of urea? It's just gone up. It's gone up by nearly 40%. All right. So the Persian Gulf on its own, basically produces about 35% of the world's global urea exports, and 95% of it is basically coming from there. So at the moment, what Australia has done is, well, they've reached out to Canada and tried to get it from them, and obviously through the back doors, they're also trying to get it from Russia, which is the other major producer for this, right? So yes, the same choking point is blocking our oil and diesel, and is also blocking urea.
Oil and the fertilizer is blocked. Right.
Yep.
That's a perfect storm.
It is, indeed, indeed. And just to give you a bit of an idea, mate, the last fertilizer vessel transited the strait just before it got closed, right? It left on the 23rd of February, I think, around that time. And Australian farmers are right now, literally as we record this, making their planting decisions for winter wheat. So this is the time to plant and the harvest in December, or just in time for Christmas.
Of course.
So
Summer.
yeah, so what we're looking at is April and May is the planting season.
And so basically, they're running out of fertilizer to put with those seeds during the planting season.
Yeah, that's basically what's happening. With urea prices going, surging, because the demand is extremely high. Everybody wants it. And, there's not much supply left. So stocks are running down. So a lot of the farmers are making this decision. Do I plant wheat or do I plant something else?
And
Some
in terms
farmers.
of urea prices, Martin, in terms of urea prices, how much of a surge are we looking at the moment? I imagine
we're looking at we're now looking at about 40%.
Wow, already
from last year. Oh yeah.
Jesus.
It is about 40%, and it might go even higher than that, right? So the individual farmer has to make that decision as to whether they want to plant wheat or something else. And here is the conundrum for the individual farmer. It's like he has to decide what will give him the best return. At the moment, it ain't wheat, because there's no enough urea in the country to give us this wonderful product called flour. So they're going for something that consumes less nitrogen, and we're looking at canola and sunflower. So that's what we're looking at.
Which means less wheat.
Indeed. Less wheat means what?
Less bread during Christmas.
Exactly. Right. So less resources. So the cost is going to go up higher to buy. Right.
Wow.
Less wheat. So basically, that's what we're looking at. So it's kind of like they're being squeezed from both angles.
The way you've described it to me, Martin,
Yeah.
we're being set up for a second wave of price pressure months from now. And that's got nothing to do with oil does between now and then, really. It's almost independent of what oil does between now and then.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. You've nailed it. But yes, there's the fuel price shock, and then there's the fertilizer shock. And all of a sudden, the individual farmer has to basically decide, what am I going to do? So let's just say if there are 100 farmers, 50 of them have decided, I'm out of that. All of a sudden it's down to 50. Then they have to buy these urea, which is in short supply, at 40% the markup from last year. And then those who don't have enough urea, you're going to get less yield. So all of a sudden, the cost of a product just goes through the roof, right? As you can imagine, the numbers are coming down, but the demand is still there, right? So that's basically what we're looking at.
Wow. So there's basically two tsunami waves that we're going to be hit with.
Yeah.
One is the fuel price shock we are feeling at the Bowser today.
Mm-hmm.
And two, probably the least talked about, is the fertilizer and wheat supply shock. And that's wave two. That's going to hit our bread aisle, you say, by the end of this year or early next year?
End of this year. So we're going to have this in stages. Just to give you a bit of an idea, the wheat grows in Southern Australia wintertime. It's harvested around November, December time. And throughout the whole process, there's the planting, the spraying, the harvesting. Every piece of machinery runs on diesel. The tractors, the harvesters, the trucks, the carts, you name it. Everything runs on diesel. And then as you look at diesel now, what is it? It's about $2.46. So last year, it's about 60 or 70 cents dearer than what it was last year. So look at it that way. There's the cost of that. Every aspect of this journey, from planting onwards, everything is going up, right?
Okay.
So this time last year, it was a lot closer to 180, I think. And now now it's about 246.
Okay, right, Martin. So walk me through this journey. The seed goes in the ground, hopefully with at least some fertilizer,
Yeah.
and then what? Just talk us through the journey from there.
Basically, well, as I mentioned to you, this entire process, there's the planting, the spraying, the harvesting. Every
Correct.
piece of machinery runs on diesel. There's the tractors, the harvesters, every part of it, right? And then
Yeah.
there's the urea component to it. And then some people might not have enough urea. So what ends up happening is you are going to get year's yield. It's costing you more to produce a bushel of wheat. And so all of a sudden, the cost just starts to go northwards, right? And at the end of the day, bread is made from flour. And flour is what? Wheat, right?
Wheat, exactly right.
So
Refined wheat.
when you have that increase in diesel, and then you have that, that's just one single component of it. There's multiple components to it, but that is going up. Each individual seed or grain, the price of this individual seed or grain starts to head northwards, right?
Martin, it's ridiculous now that you put those things in perspective. So in my head,
Mm.
that's already a 50% increase in diesel costs for the farmer before they've even sold a single grain. How does that make sense?
It doesn't make well, it does and it doesn't, right?
Yeah,
Look,
the prices have gone up even before they've sold a single grain.
indeed, absolutely right. And don't forget, the farmer harvests it, and guess what happens? It goes to a flour mill, right? It will either be Allied Mills or Manildra or something like that. So that's where things get sorted out, right? It gets, the wheat gets cleaned, ground, sifted, you name it, and then it's turned into flour. And there's the milling process, which is also energy intensive.
Of course.
Right, so there's big industrial units. Some of them, the ovens are running on what, gas. The mixers are running on electricity. These things all cost money because at the end of the day, these things are taking inputs from other places, right? So the cost of LNG has gone up. So your oven's going to cost you more to bake a loaf of bread simply because the cost of LNG has gone up. And then let's not forget the bread comes in plastic bags, right? Which is a byproduct of crude, right?
Of crude refining.
Yeah, refined crude. So let's not forget that. And then on top of it, obviously, the truck that takes it from wherever they've done it to the supermarket. So everything is interconnected.
And this is where the magic happens.
Indeed, yeah, this is where the magic happens. So that you have the big industrial bakers like Tip Top, Goodman Fielder. They all run these huge operations, massive operations. Ovens running on gas and everything else, as I mentioned, right? So now that you're looking at the loaf of bread and you're saying, hang on a minute, I've started planting it. It's costing me more to get one grain. Then you take it to these guys to sift flour clean and then bake it. Again, the cost is going north. So that's basically where we are looking at. And then obviously put in a plastic bag, which is a derivative of crude oil.
So the bag itself is an oil product.
The bag
Believe
itself,
it
is an oil product.
Wow.
So when the price of crude goes up, the cost of making the bag goes up. That's basically it. It might be a small number. No, it's not. It is definitely a small number. It's just a fraction of a cent that will go up. But it all adds up. It all adds up because we're looking at hundreds of millions of loaves per year that we're doing. So it all adds up.
It all adds up. So let me get this straight. So we've got diesel in the farm machinery, diesel in the trucks, gas in the oven, oil in the plastic bag.
Yep.
At what point does a loaf of bread stop being a food product and start being an oil product with some wheat in it and some nutrients?
That is a really good question, mate. I mean, that's a really rhetorical question you've asked. But the honest answer is that energy and the oil derived from inputs touch every single stage of it. So at some point, you have to look at it and say, man, what is this? Is this a food product or an oil product? And that is a question you have to ask yourself, right?
Flabbergasted.
Yeah, when you break down the cost of a $3 loaf of bread, right? The estimate is that roughly you're looking at 35 to 40 cents or 45 cents is directly tied to diesel, gas, or petrochemical products.
So you're telling me that's nearly 15% of the retail price?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, wow. You're good at maths. Is it 15%? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you say so. Yeah.
But 45 cents of $3. So all right. So that's just looking at the loaf. So the bread is baked, it's sliced, it's bagged, but now it still has to get to me.
Yes, it does have to get to you, man. And how does it get to you? Well, it's by trucks. The trucks go from the bakery to the distribution centers, from the distribution center to the individual supermarkets. So basically, what you're looking at is hundreds and hundreds of diesel trucks. All these trucks. Yeah, you see the Linfox trucks floating around. They're carting things from one distribution center to the next, and basically that's where that also adds on to the cost. And then it comes to the supermarket shelf. And don't forget, they got to run this place, right? So they got electricity. They got lights, they got everything else, and they got to pay people too a living wage. So let's not forget all that too. There's the refrigeration cost too, and everything else. So everything starts to add up, basically.
Right.
Everything starts to add up.
And this is what's blown my mind this evening, Martin. So by the time I pick up that loaf, it's been touched by oil at how many different stages? What, 8 or 9 already?
But right. Yeah. At the end of the day, Coles, Woolies, they're smart, right? Bread is what is known as known value item. Okay. Right. So it is one thing that shoppers instinctively judge whether a supermarket is cheap or expensive. They look at the loaf of bread and say,
100%.
okay, it's easy to make that correlation, right? So
Correct.
what happens is that most of the time, supermarkets actually subsidize it because they don't want to come across
Really?
as, yes. So
Oh, wow.
supermarkets absolutely subsidize it a little bit so it doesn't look like they are expensive. If the shopper realizes, oh, their bread is more expensive, then the odds on are that they're going to the opposition,
They'll
basically.
associate with
Yeah, so they're
everything being
quietly
expensive.
eating it out. They're quietly, subsidizing the whole thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, but those buffers have limits. Okay, those
Of
buffers have
course.
limits.
Yeah.
There's only so much a
They're
supermarket.
they're trying to make a profit as well, right?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a commercial part to it and they're looking at it and saying, we need the traffic, hence
Correct.
it's a known value item. We need to kind of make sure that it's within a target range where it's not too expensive. People don't think it is silly expensive that they stop coming. So they will absorb the cost. But don't forget, it was also going to flow into other parts,
Of
which is
course.
not part of the known value item, right?
Right.
But gradually, there's only so much they can absorb, and you start to see that 5, 10, 15% step change happening gradually.
Which is where you get that moment at the shelf going, wait, when did that happen?
Exactly. That's the moment.
All right. I want to get practical for a second, Martin, because
Mhm.
I think our listeners are probably doing the mental maths right now and going, okay, but how much are we actually talking? Like in dollars and cents on my bread.
Well, let's do the maths, right?
Okay.
I want to give everyone a number so they can actually take away from this table and use. So it is for every $10 rise in a barrel of oil,
Mhm.
right? Your loaf of bread gets approximately 2.5 to 4 cents increase more expensive for every $10.
So
Right?
2.5 to 4.5 cents.
Cent. It doesn't sound much,
Mhm.
right? But you're just looking at purely on the price of crude.
Okay. And that's on a per $10 rise.
Per $10 rise, yeah.
Okay, of course.
Yeah. Now, as I said, it doesn't sound dramatic, but here's the thing. It was at $65. It's now at, let's just say, $100.
Yeah, 105, but let's round it up to
105
100
around
just
it
for.
makes it easier. So let's start from 60, 100. There's a $40 difference. So let's just look at it as a 3 cents. So there's already a 12-cent rise in the price of bread. If we look at it,
So that's
2.5 to 4 cents. So let's take the middle. Let's assume it's 3 cents. We're looking at about 12-cent rise, right?
okay. Okay. And that's just the oil. That doesn't include the fertilizer crunch, the wheat supply issue, and the freight surcharges.
Spot on. Absolutely. We're just looking purely on the oils. Don't forget the urea part, the fertilizer impact, right? The wheat supply disruption, right? As I mentioned in the beginning, that if there were 100 farmers doing wheat and it's come down to 50 farmers and not everyone can afford that 40% rise, all of a sudden wheat in itself becomes a very precious commodity.
Okay. So let's talk scenarios.
Right.
Because right now we've got oil at what, $105.
Mhm.
What happens from here?
Well, this is where it gets a bit interesting, right?
Okay.
We can look at it from
Spell
two
it out for me.
scenarios. Look
Okay.
at it from two scenarios. What happens if diplomacy makes progress and things start to happen, right? And the Strait of Hormuz partially opens.
So
Or
basically, US and Iran find some kind of middle ground.
middle ground. Don't forget Israel has to come to the party too,
Of
right?
course. Yes, yes, yes.
And everyone. So then it's not going to be sudden, but the price of oil will start to head downwards. So then what we're looking at is hopefully we don't see the dramatic rises. That is scenario A, right? Yeah. So and then there's the scenario B part, right? But
And
anyway,
before we go into scenario B,
yeah,
because our central subject of this discussion today was a loaf of bread.
yeah.
What does the loaf of bread look like in scenario A? The price of it, rather.
Partial resolution in mid-year, things settling down by hopefully by September.
So partial resolution by media. Okay.
Things settling down by September. We'll be looking at Coles and Woolies, it's the standard sandwich bread, the white bread we're talking about. We're looking at about between 320 and 340. We started at $3, 320 and 340. That's where we're looking at. Manageable.
Okay.
It's okay. It's not great, but it does add
Okay.
up, right? It
And
is manageable.
it's manageable in the grand scheme of things,
Yep.
considering how bad the scenario is.
Yep.
A 20 cent or 40 cent in the grand scheme of things at this stage seems a lot more serviceable.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Um,
Yeah, but there is a catch to it, but I will talk about it. Yeah.
Okay, and let's go. What does scenario B look like?
Now that's the dangerous one. That is the dangerous one, mate.
Okay.
They can't come to any agreement. The Strait of Hormuz stays closed. The conflict continues.
So deadlock.
Deadlock, no movement, and nothing happening, right? Then we're looking at a barrel of crude heading towards 150, 200. Okay. Then all of a sudden, every $10 rise, let's just take 150. Let's say $60 to 150 is how much? It's a $90 change.
$90.
Right. So a $90 change basically means it's 9 times 3. So we're looking at about 30 cents just in the cost of that bread. Just purely oil part, right? But there's everything else. That's 30 cents on its own right? So, yeah, if that happens, then we're looking at a lot. So, well, it's not great.
What are we looking at, Martin? What are we looking at?
Look, 150 would be insane. 200 would be like, we might as well just shut shop, right? Because it won't be great.
The fact of the matter is, there is a lead time before it gets to a stage of normalcy, right?
The thing is, look, most people don't comprehend how intertwined everything is.
Correct.
Right? And it's unprecedented, right? And we're looking, look, if the strait remains closed, our modeling would basically say that a loaf of bread, white bread, we're looking at about 370 to 410. So it started at $3, reached 370 to $4.10. Right?
That's nearly 40% higher than where we started.
Indeed.
Martin, I feel like we needed to start off this discussion with some statutory warning. I did not expect it to be this great. We should have had some disclaimers up front.
Yeah.
30 to 40%. That's ridiculous.
Now, look, everyone look at it and say, yeah, all right, it's just a loaf of bread. But don't forget, some households, they will go through 3-4 loaves of bread in a week.
Easy. I can talk
right?
about my household. Absolutely.
Right. So there you go. So that increase starts to hit real hard, man. Real hard. We're just talking bread here, right? So let's not, there's a lot more that coming. Imagine what you're buying. Yeah. But we're just talking just to articulate that price differential that is going to start hitting the pocket is where I'm talking about 30
something
to 40.
that you take as you take it for granted.
Correct.
Your loaf of bread, your humble loaf of bread.
Yeah, at $4, imagine how that is going to hit you, right? Just loaf of bread, you're looking at your numbers heading north, right?
That's nearly what, $4 a loaf of bread. That's
you
go through it. You're easily looking at about $200 to $220 to $250 a year.
Yep. You're basically looking at, if you're buying 4 loaves of bread, let's just say there's extra 4, and you're doing it weekly, you're looking at $16 more or less, give or take, in just bread cost. Yeah. And then you multiply that, and you're assuming that everything stays the same. 16 times 12 is what? Or 16 times 10 is 160 plus another 32. So it's 192. So we're looking at $200. You're right. Spot on. Yeah? That's the difference. That is the difference. So,
so that's $60 a year on bread on top of what we're paying.
Yep.
And bread is just one item, right?
That is just one item. Yeah.
Suddenly it's not $60, it's $600. We're looking at fuel, freight, fertilizer, all of that adding up.
Indeed. Yeah. So, yeah, look, it's not exactly ideal. I'll tell you that.
Can I just stop you there for a second, Martin?
Yeah.
Only looking at the plain sliced bread that we get from the big commercial
white bread.
Yes, the white bread from from Coles and Woolworths. The only reason I interject in here, we're not name dropping brands here, but something like a Baker's Delight, the white bread there is more expensive.
Oh yeah, look,
because
Baker's Delight. I can't even tell you. We won't go to Baker's Delight. Let's not go there because it would be insane.
That's like the Ritz-Carlton of breads now.
It become the Ritz-Carlton of bread, right? Because we're just talking stock standard, cheap ass cheaps bread that when we walk into Coles that has got no name on it, right? The one that they import from Ireland or something like that. That one, yeah, they probably have to stop importing it from Ireland. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So basically, imagine that.
Yeah.
So picture this, right? You have the renters, the casuals, people on fixed income. All of a sudden, we are in trouble, right? We are in trouble. Right. Everyone can start to look at buying from 4 loaves. It will start coming down to 3 loaves. It's a real choice.
Well, yeah, and bread going from $3 to $4 at this point isn't just an annoyance. It's real choice between this versus something else.
Indeed.
So pardon the pun. Basically, we're toast.
We are. Well, it's not as harsh as that, but yeah, we'll probably call it that.
All right. Look,
they show up in the kitchen. Go on. Sorry, mate.
I was going to say, look, at the end of this, that's the whole point of our conversation today, right? Isn't it? These big geopolitical wars, strait closures, oil shocks, they feel abstract, they feel disconnected, but they're not. They feel like they're happening over there to other people. They shouldn't be affecting us, but they are. They're happening right on our kitchen bench.
Indeed. That's the thing. They actually show up on your kitchen bench every time.
All right, let's narrow it down. Let's talk about Australia specifically for a bit, because I think there's a temptation to go, look, we're down here at the bottom of the world. We're insulated from all of this. The tyranny of distance actually protects us for once.
It used to be true in the 70s, but not anymore, I think, because everything is interconnected, right? It's a comforting thought, but only half of it is true. Anyway, let me give you 2 ways in which Australia is actually going to be more exposed than most people realize.
Hit me.
Number 1 is diesel. Australia's diesel is not produced here. We get it from Singapore. We import every single liter of the damn bloody thing. We don't make it, right? It's refined at some of these various Asian hubs, but mostly in Singapore. And they get it, guess where? From the Middle East. So we're heavily reliant on the Gulf states a lot producing this, getting transported to the refineries in Singapore or anywhere in Asia. We refine it and we're buying it.
So
That's
the
how we get our
middleman is
diesel.
also exposed.
Yeah, the middleman is very heavily exposed. And the flow on is that the Australian diesel prices have moved north. The government actually stepped in. Now, you know that. The government actually stepped in to kind of say, we need to bring this thing down. So they basically, the excise duty or the tax on it has been reduced. They halved it basically. I think it was 53 cents. They brought it down to 26 cents or something like that.
So
But
more than half, basically.
yeah, slightly more than half. And basically, here's the catch to it. That tax, that excise discount that they're giving us,
Relief, yeah.
relief, is coming to end in June. So
So another
watch that
month.
space. Yeah. So it's just that gives you a little bit of relief at the pump. And yeah,
So it's
that's
just
basically where we're
just a temporary pain relief at best. Is
sort
it
of, yeah.
working though?
Yeah, sort of. It is working. It is. But here's the problem. The supply is so acute that we don't know. The price are already gone north. We were talking $2.46 and it's probably started going to heading in. So even though they have taken off 26 cents or 27, whatever, 26 cents, it's getting eaten up, right? And imagine what would happen if the excise comes to an end, which the government can't continue for the rest, because that basically means we're going to get hit somewhere else. But
Correct.
so it's going to be there's going to be problems down the line. I mean, at some point, the government have to say, no, we can't afford to keep giving this discount on excise. So, yeah.
And that excise, that temporary relief expires at the end of June. So we've got another 6 weeks at best.
Yeah, yeah. And fingers crossed, let's hope that everything comes to an end before then. Because the government has to make a decision whether they want to extend it or not. The odds on are that they won't extend. They can't afford to extend it. So the only thing they're going to do is probably ask people who've got diesel cars to stop using diesel cars, basically. But pump price is going to go back. So $2.46 at where it's standing, add another 26 cents to it. So what is that? $2.80 is where to end up. And it'll probably go north of three. I think you can basically make sure you're basically stuck with that.
And we are walking into winter again, Martin. So pump prices could spike again. The energy demand.
Yeah.
We have literally, especially in Victoria here, we've walked into our first week of proper winter.
Yeah. It's not going to be fun, mate. I can honestly assure you, we're not looking at a pleasant situation. We're not.
All right, guys. The guys that are watching, mark it in your calendars.
Yeah.
June 30th.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. All right. The D-Day. All right, Martin, serious topic. You said there were two ways that Australia is more exposed than people think. What's the second one?
Fertilizer, mate. Fertilizer. Simple.
Good old fertilizer.
Good old fertilizer. And most people underestimate or underappreciate. It's one of the most underappreciated part of it, right? In the agricultural sector. Australia is a huge wheat exporter. We go enormous amount of this stuff. We're the fourth largest exporter of wheat. But if we don't have fertilizer, if we don't have urea, we're in trouble. That's
so
as
we
simple
don't
as
have the inputs needed to grow it.
No. And a huge chunk of that historically came from the Gulf anyway. So as you can imagine.
So basically, when the strait closed, the fertilizer supply closed with it.
It's very good. But you're right. The pipeline
Nothing
is
straight
closed,
about this,
man.
Martin.
Yeah, and urea prices are basically going through the roof now. So, there's a shortage of that stuff. So all of a sudden it's just heading northwards. So we're looking at, it's a critical window right now. So April, May. So this is a planting season. So farmers have to make that decision, right? And say, how do we do this? Do we plant wheat or we plant something else? There we go. And yeah, that's basically where we are looking at.
So you don't get a second chance. You miss the planting window. You miss the season.
That's it.
Full stop.
Yep.
So how are farmers responding?
That's a good question, mate, to be honest. Well, look, some are scrambling to get urea from alternative sources. Canada, Russia. But Russia, obviously, with the sanctions and things and this Ukraine war, we don't want to deal with Russia. So there's that. So it's a bit iffy, but look, that's basically what's happening. Look, some farmers are pivoting towards canola and some of them are going towards sunflower. You have to look at it from a farmer's point of view. For them, basically, they're looking at it and thinking, well, I need to plant something that gives me money and it's not going to cost me a shit ton of money just to get it across the line, right?
And as much as you talk about, Martin, sourcing out alternative suppliers, it's not something that can happen with the flick of a switch. I suppose it takes time to establish those supply chains, and then suddenly the shipping routes are longer, the delivery times are longer, and then subsequently more expensive. Would that be correct?
That's a given, right? Yeah. That is an absolute given. So everything now will start to take time, right? So the prices are going to follow through. You're going to get the second wave of price increases.
One, price are going to go through the roof, like you said. The second wave, two, if the farmers are actually going to start preferring to plant canola over wheat, that essentially means there's less wheat towards the end of the year. So when harvest comes around in November, December, there's less of it.
There's less of it. Absolutely correct.
And then that flows through to next year.
Indeed.
It doesn't end with that. bad.
No, and bread is considered the staple, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it's not, there's less of it. Flour prices are going to start going up. Bread prices are going to follow again. So there comes a second wave.
You know what I keep thinking about, Martin?
Mhm.
The IEA guy, Fatih Birol, apparently he said that he felt like a bit of a broken record, warning about this for years. He told countries specifically diversify energy and supply routes. And nobody really listened. Is that what we've come down to?
Yep. The short answer is yes. Yeah, he did
That's
say that. We're
insane.
looking at a $110 trillion global economy that is being held hostage by a handful of people. So we are. You go to a choke point. Everyone knew this was going to be a problem. Everyone knew,
Well,
right?
did
It's
everyone know, or everybody just chose not to listen to it? There were a handful of people that actually said this is going to happen. At some point, this model is going to crack, but nobody really listened.
Look, there were alternatives, but they're going to be more expensive. But just don't forget, we are in a capitalist society, right?
Correct.
And basically, this was the cheaper option. So nobody wanted to look at it as a bad way. They said, all right, well, it's open now. Let's just keep using it. We don't want to invest on something else. And we don't want to create a redundancy. In technology, we say, look, you should never have a single point of failure, right? So
Correct. Correct.
you have alternatives. It doesn't work in finance like that. Because the alternatives were expensive and the strait being closed seemed to be not something they really took into account. Here we are. And then
And then somebody actually did it.
yes. And you're spot on. And then someone actually did it. And here we are. Here we are.
Wow, wow. All right, Martin. So what do we actually tell people to expect? Like somebody's listening to this on their way to work, right? They're going, right, this is fantastic. This is fascinating. But what does it actually mean to my life? How does this affect me? So how does it affect the Joe Blow down the road?
Well, you're going to see prices heading north. That's one.
Of
But
course.
let's be more concrete about it. There will be 3 time points that you're looking at right now,
Okay.
July
Right.
and September.
Okay. Right now.
Your $3 loaf of bread is already under a lot of pressure. So the cost of making it has gone through the roof. You name it. We've talked about it, ad nauseum here. So you're not going to kind of feel the full impact. There's a bit of price lag that is going to be happening. And don't forget also is that the supermarkets are also going to look at it and they're quite conscious of the fact they just can't increase prices because people will just get jittery. Right? So supermarkets are going to take about 4 to 8 weeks to kind of renegotiate their pricing. They'll absorb some of it, but the process is underway. So come May, June, you're going to start seeing more movement.
And
Right?
then July.
Then July, yep, absolutely. Then July. Then we have to look at the scenarios. In scenario A, if there's been diplomatic progress, then we can estimate the loaf of bread to be around 320 to 40-ish, and hopefully maybe supermarkets will eat some of it. But yeah, you just had about 20 to 35 cents. That's basically what you're looking at. And scenario B, July, yeah, well, then we are looking at 360 on the shelf. And if
And
the fuel excise
September?
relief has expired by then there's that, that's also going to come into play. So yeah, so this one item on your, is basically looking at about 360. And in September,
Wait, and at
yeah,
this point, we're just looking at one item on our shopping list, right? We haven't even looked at dairy, meat, produce, and canned goods.
I think it will get too complicated for us to, if we start talking. Why?
But that all, I'm just saying
It's
all
going to
that
add up.
adds up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, look, yeah. I mean,
That's-
imagine that,
They all go
if
hand in hand.
scenario B happens where the strait still remains closed in July and your freezer bread went from $3 to $3.60, just the bread, white bread. We're not talking multigrain. Imagine multigrain and everything else. That would be something else, right?
It's crazy,
60
Martin,
cents. So
because
now you look at meat, you look at milk, you look at everything else. I mean, like,
it's just hand in hand.
yeah, and don't forget, as we mentioned in our last episode, Australia was already going through cost of living crisis.
Cost of living crisis, you're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
So this is no joke, mate.
This is just insult to injury, really.
Yeah.
And it's funny. You've talked about the second point being July. Now, in the grand scheme of things,
Mhm.
we are in May, in the first week of May. It's
Mhm.
not that far off to
It's not.
July, but yet in the next 60 days, there's so much that can happen.
Correct.
By
That's why we
September,
all have to keep our fingers crossed and hope to God that sanity prevails and people just go back, sheath all their swords, and we go back to normal. Hopefully, hopefully.
something has to give, Martin.
If not, we're looking at some issues, and then we'll look at September, right?
Okay.
And scenario A, if that happens and there's some kind of resolution, then you're looking at about $3.40 is basically where to sit at, manageable. Scenario B, we're looking at about $4.10. So imagine that. So all of a sudden, come
Okay.
September, you're looking at $4.10, and a $3 loaf of bread goes to $4.10, and you're like, all right.
I want to just name something here because I think that's really important. A lot of this conversation has been about percentages and cents and scenarios. But behind all of that are real people for whom the difference between $3 and $4, that's not academic, especially specifically for a loaf. That is not academic.
Absolutely. It's not. Let's clear some things out here, right? Okay. Food
Okay.
prices are going up, right? Someone on $150,000, it's not going to matter. They're not going to see this, going to look at it and say,
Not
yeah, it
yet.
says, yeah. But imagine you're a family, you're a single parent, you're a new start allowance or whatever, food is already a massive portion of your budget.
Of
And all of a
course.
sudden it's just climbing upwards, right? So what do you think is going to happen? Right? So you go from that, let's assume you got 4 loaves of bread, it will come down to 3. That means if every day you're sending your kid 2 sets of sandwiches and things, that's going to come down, mate, right? Basically containing your consumption. And there's only one way this will end up, right? A child is going to go to school or whatever it is, or as a parent, you will have to consume less so you can make sure they're okay. Or it's not, it's
Collectively.
collective,
That's
yeah,
scary.
collectively it's scary times you're looking at. So
And here's
yes, if you're 150,000, doesn't really matter. 200,000 as a family, you're fine.
yeah,
You'll be
but
okay.
that's not the majority, Martin.
It's not. It's not.
And
Yeah.
look, globally, I guess it gets even more stark.
Mhm.
The IMF has been flagging this, low income countries where food is 40% of the average household spending. For them, a fertilizer shortage and a wheat supply shock is not a podcast topic. It's a food security crisis.
You telling me that? Absolutely. Yeah, it is. The Strait of Hormuz isn't just an energy story, mate. To be brutally honest, it's a food story. Let's just put it out there. It is absolutely a food story. And in the most vulnerable parts of the world, parts of Africa, parts of Asia, it's going to be a devastating one, mate. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun.
So what can our listeners actually do? Is there anything practical we could do?
Well, look, I guess we'll have to watch out for June 30th, right? And see whether the government extends it or not.
Not just end of financial year here.
Well, no. Well, that's normally the time you get your tax too. You just start doing your tax return, but now you'll be watching the fuel. For those of us here in Australia, so I just want to make that very clear. Our financial year actually comes to an end in June 30th, and new financial year starts on 1st of July. Look,
That's when the fuel excise expires.
correct. So the second aspect of it, if you're in a position to do so, start buying things in bulk, but don't overdo it. Don't do what people did.
We've seen that over COVID.
Yeah, we did. We saw that in COVID. People were buying toilet paper.
Brought out the worst in people.
Oh,
I'll be the
God.
first one to.
Yeah.
I
So
saw it
please, no panic
firsthand.
buying or anything like that. So, but be sensible about it and be watchful of what you're buying. And yes, the period of excess is over. I can tell you straight up now, the period of excess where you bought things on a whim and you bought things because you could
Your weekly takeaway nights.
is over, right? Try and understand the supply chains because when you understand them, you can then have a greater understanding
An
of the
appreciation, I suppose.
appreciation of the political decisions that are being made and what's going to happen.
So every time you grab that loaf, you connect it to everything that we've talked about today. The farm, the strait, the tanker, the tractor, the policy debate in Canberra. It's all in there from end to end, from slice to slice.
It's all in there baked in, mate.
Ooh, was that a bread pun?
It was. It was a bread pun. I'm not sorry about it.
Love it. Love it. I guess, Martin, we have to sort of wrap this up again.
Yeah.
I suppose before we wrap up, I want to leave people with something bigger than just the price analysis, because I really think there's something genuinely profound about what we've been talking about today. It certainly opened up my eyes to a lot of things.
Yeah, I agree. I've been thinking a lot about this, especially on putting this episode together.
Go on.
We live in a world where it's built on the assumption that this complex supply chain was going to be permanent.
Yeah, everyone just
we
kumbaya.
we talked about this in a previous episode.
Correct.
That the oil will flow, the fertilizer will arrive on time, the ships will get through, there's no problems. And for decades, the assumption held. There's no problems about it.
That model
Because
worked. That
the
model did
model
work.
worked. Yeah, it was tested during the Iran-Iraq War, the Iraq War, 9/11, GFC, COVID, you name it. It still held, and we got comfortable.
That's right.
We got complacent, right? And so, but there was a lot of fragility under it, and we talked about it in the last episode. So we talked about that value chain
this
aspect of
is
it.
deja vu.
Yeah.
Correct.
So there was a lot of fragility under it, and now we're seeing
And
it.
I think that's the thing. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, man.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing we're coming to terms with.
Yeah.
In our heads, we feel like we've seen a lot more catastrophes, but this one hits a lot more harder purely
Indeed.
because of the fact Yeah,
Indeed. I
COVID, I
mean, like
thought was,
we all thought
yeah,
COVID was bad. We lived in Victoria, so it was pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. I mean, for
yes,
a lot of people, it probably wasn't.
absolutely.
But this is,
But
it
not to
makes
this extent.
this will
During
make
COVID, you
COVID
was
look like it was
oh,
nothing.
it nothing in the grand scheme. Again, no disrespect to anyone. We personally know a lot of people that have experienced tragedy. That's not to trivialize any of it, but given the scheme of things, whilst the world was in lockdown, you still got your bread, right? You still got your loaf
You
of bread.
did.
Nothing of that ever affected it. You still got, yes, we weren't allowed to drive our cars, but there was still petrol available at the houses. There
Mm.
was nothing other than the panic buying of toilet paper. Everything else was available to continue our lives as is. This one hits home a lot more harder.
Yeah.
A 50-kilometer stretch of water reminded us, brought us
Yes.
crashing back down to earth.
Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, people knew this was going to be a problem, but they did nothing about it. And they assumed that the supply chain will keep going and it will still working. But the fact of the matter is, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link anyway. And we know that.
Correct.
Everyone knows that, right?
And
Because,
something as,
yeah,
for want of a better word, nondescript as a loaf of bread is dependent on that supply chain.
indeed. Yeah. And we have both worked in technology. We've always said building redundancy and resilience is an important part of jobs we do.
It's
And yet
yeah, there's
here we are in a situation where global food and everything else, when we had the opportunity to build it and not and diversify, we didn't do it. We didn't do it.
we all agreed, sort of collectively, not to look too closely at the weaklings because looking at them was uncomfortable, right? Because look, building redundancy and resilience is expensive because the world as it was working until it wasn't.
Spot on until it wasn't. And I don't think the lesson here is just doom and gloom. I don't think it is. The system is broken. It'll take time for it to be built. Everything is kind of falling apart, but the lesson is more subtle than that. It is,
What we choose to see,
yeah, it's what we choose to see. So when you pick up your next loaf of bread,
which I will be
you
doing
when you
tomorrow morning.
yeah, and you look at the price and you say, hang on a minute, what's going on here? Your instinct was correct. This is actually it's a bit more expensive than when I bought it last week, right?
Yeah.
And so we owe it to ourselves to be honest with each other, and hopefully we learn a lot from this.
Loaf of bread is never just a loaf of bread.
It never is, man. Never was too. So yeah, look, basically the loaf of bread is the map of the world we live in.
All right. On that note, hand on heart, that is generally one of the most intriguing and heartfelt, thought-provoking, mind-blowing conversations we've had on the show. A lot of it is, some of the more generic stuff that's reported in the press. I dare say this is one of those things that and credit to you, right, for going almost peeling a layer and bringing it down to something that's more relatable. Because up until now, we've just discussed stuff that was already in the press. I think this is a great, great piece of a conversation that you stirred up.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate that. I mean, this one, because I wanted to break it down and I want to have a look at it and see how this is, at the end of the day, everyone understands bread, single loaf of bread, and it kind of gives you an idea what is happening. So that's basically why
Absolutely.
I did it. Yeah.
I'd appreciate it. Look, to everyone listening, thank you so much for spending your time with us. If this episode made you think differently about something you normally take for granted, that was the whole point of Borders and Beyond today. The big stuff is always hiding inside the ordinary. You just have to know where to look.
Indeed. And until next time, hopefully you stay curious, you all stay connected. And
So
those
maybe
of you,
go make some toast.
maybe we should. And on that lovely note, I'm going to ask everyone, those of you who have sat through this, if you could subscribe, that'd be great. If you could give us a thumbs up, that would even be better. And please let us know in the comments what you want us to talk about. This is more about dissecting. It was probably a bit too economical and talking about numbers and cost and things like that, but it was something we needed to have.
Absolutely. Look, yeah, you spot on, Martin. There's an icon for like, there's an icon for subscribe. I dare say for this episode, we need an icon to break bread. So
We do. All right. On that lovely note, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you very much, everyone. Vinny, I will hand over the mic to you and for the last words.
now, this is a brilliant, brilliant episode, Martin. As much as the talk revolved around the economics and price of it, it really hits home when you actually distill that down to a loaf of bread, something the humble loaf of bread that we take for granted. I, for one, didn't realize that, or was almost oblivious to the fact that how much of this fuel crisis actually affects a single slice of bread. So thank you for putting that into perspective. Yeah,
You're more than welcome. Hopefully, cooler heads prevail and everybody sheets
absolutely.
their swords, and we can probably deal with a $3.20 or a $3.40 bread. But if it goes to $4.10, then yeah, we are in trouble. And on that
Absolutely.
lovely note, I'll say goodbye.
Goodbye, Martin.